Hi and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to show you how I outline lips for lip blush. So you can see that these lips are already mapped and I'm going to start lining them here. Now what I see a lot of people doing is lining and getting really deep results, and it's the line that heals too bold. So I tend to line with a pendulum movement. Because the needle isn't staying in the skin for this movement, it brushes it. It's a much softer line. For this lady, I'm using a 3RL, nice tight 3RL, and I'm going to just start by doing a pendulum and seeing how her skin reacts. We may have to go over the line a couple of times, so what I do is I use one of those bamboo eyeliner ones with the cotton ends. I prefer those to the spongy ends. And I just remove a section at a time just to see how it's implanting. So I wouldn't do the whole line and not check it because you don't know what's going on under there. So I put about 20 of these on my tray. I buy a lot of these little tools. They work for so many great things. So I'm realizing that I have to go over this lady at this point on her lips a couple of times to make that line visible. So I'm using a really nice bright pigment here. This is made by Sklilz, Skilz. And you may be able to see that I'm brushing back and forward and the needle is leaving the skin on each movement. And then we're going to remove some here and it's going to be nice and bright. And actually it's gone in really, really well here. So I can probably ease off on the next section and not do it as much, but it's there, it's visible, so I can remove that and work really, really cleanly as long as I'm not removing any more of the mapping. I'm just going to actually, I like cleaning up as I go. I get really stressed doing lips if it's messy. I really like a nice clean canvas to work with. So because this line it's quite a bold pigment, I can see it really easily. So I'm going to make sure that I clean as I go. You can see it there, nice bold line. As we move around this client, you may think that I've gone outside her lip line at this point, you know, at the point I've just done. This is because she has a kind of dint in her lips where she's got this almost visible line, but actually the lip tissue itself extends past that line and it is the lip I'm lining. I don't go outside the vermillion border. The reason I don't like to go outside the vermillion border is the skin is very different from lip membrane tissue and it heals very differently. And so if you go too far out of the vermillion border, you're going to get two-tone healed results, and it can sometimes look like a lip stain, almost like you've been drinking Vimto or something. So, so she does have that sort of paler line next to the outline that I've done, but it is lip tissue. How will I know that? I a lot of the time work with magnifiers just because my eyes are getting a little bit old now, but I always start with magnifiers when I'm mapping the lip and I get really, really close. Because skin has pores and it has hairs. You do not have hairs on your lips. So you want to be looking at where the lip tissue extends. And as your clients get more mature, this becomes easier to mess up because wrinkles can start in the lips and go out into the skin. And so you can mistake the wrinkly tissue that's outside of the lips for lip tissue when actually it is skin. So you want to be looking very closely. Are there hairs? Are there pores there? That's skin, and you want to make sure that you're not tattooing on that. So what I'm doing is I'm just gradually moving along my client. And can you see that the way I'm stretching is more with the flat part of my finger rather than my pointy fingertips? I'm flattening out her lips and stretching it. You do need a really good stretch on lips, but not overly, you know, because you can go a little too deep then. With lips, the tissue is so much thinner. So to implant it in the correct layer, you need so much less pressure. So I like to give the lips a good stretch, and I continue to keep wiping, taking away those little sections and making sure it's implanted. There is nothing more stressful than thinking you've got an outline or thinking you've got a pattern in permanent makeup and then wiping and there being nothing there. Well, this way I can just keep taking sections out. They're almost like little windows and making sure that my colour is implanting. So this was implanted, but it just needed going over a little bit. And this way I'm able to work really cleanly. So I'm just brushing away there with my 3RL. This needle is made by Aloor, ALOOR. I really love these needles for lips. I find it implants the colour really, really well. Most of the time I will use a 1RL if I can. I just get really crisp results. But not everyone's skin can take a 1RL. And this lady, she couldn't take a 1RL. It just was making her skin bleed. So if you're getting a lot of bleeding, a lot of trauma, then you need to change your needle. So I will usually use a 1RL, often a 3RL, and sometimes a Magnum as well. I very rarely use shaders on lips, but to outline I do like a 1RL, but because I'm doing a really dusty outline and it is a tight 3RL, a smaller needle size as well, I'm still going to get a really crisp result. I don't like the really wide lines that I'm seeing on a lot of people's work, so I want to keep it really nice and crisp. So as you can see, with a really nice stretch there and slow pendulum movement, we've got that bottom line done really quickly. So also I've outlined there with concealer to keep my line really sharp, so it's really, really easy to follow with my needle. I don't go all the way to the commissures at the edge because I've just got a higher chance of migration there, so I always just leave a little gap at the end. Quick wipe with my bamboo. Usually I'll use green soap on there, but this lady's a little bit sensitive to it. When I've done her brows before, she was a bit sensitive to it, so I'm literally just using distilled water on gauze there to clean it, and you can see it's really nice and clean, and that keeps me really happy. I find that when the pigment is all over the face, it's really stressful. But also these pigments are nice to clean. They're a really nice consistency. They go in the skin beautifully, they give really nice vibrant colours. So I don't actually have to do that much work to get them into the lips. So I really love the Sklilz pigments. A quick wipe and a check. Make sure I'm happy with the line all the way along. I think you can see what I mean about the right hand side, that it may look like I've gone out of it, but it is actually a dint more in the shape of her lips that's casting a shadow. I'm not out of the shape at all there. That is lip tissue. If you do see this with a client, the best thing to do is to talk to them and see what they want. What do they want out of the shape? And just make sure that you're both happy with the mapping of it. So I'm going to go on to the top lip now. The top lip is way more sensitive for clients. There's something about this section of lip that always means I have to do a little bit more work, sometimes 3 passes. It is probably down to the angle. Pulling towards myself at this angle, it's a little bit steeper. So when I remove this section, I'll be noticing that I'll have to go over that again. So what I'll probably do is just be mindful to slow my hand down a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit of a slower movement. We can be really successful with one section and then start rushing. So just a reminder to slow my hand down. My machine here is, I think it was at a 5.2, so quite slow, and I'm using a Bishop wand packer, which is certainly not for beginners because this is quite a powerful machine. So you absolutely need to know that your depth is spot on to be using something like this, or you could hurt somebody. So a lot of people do like the Bishop wand packer because it packs colour in very, very quickly, but it's definitely more for someone who's a little bit more advanced. So once again, I'm going to remove some sections. With the bamboos as well, I don't soak them because I find that makes a mess. I just want them damp, and I put on quite a lot of pressure when I'm pushing and wiping that vertical line. So I actually press on quite hard so that I can really see the skin. If you sort of gently smudge it, you're just going to smear the pigment. You're not going to be able to see whether the colour is implanted. So in this section, I am having to go over it a little bit more. I find this happens to me in this place a lot because obviously the way the face is shaped, it's curved round, and the lips are curved round as well. So you're going to have stronger hand positions that implant better, which is why we need to be checking, because if suddenly you're over implanting, then you need to know about it. Or if you're going really deep into the skin, it's you need to be knowing what you're doing. So check every couple of centimetres. So if we go on to the next bit now, as we head towards the Cupid's bow, that really is the most sensitive. The closer you go to the centre of the top lip, the more sensitive it is for your clients. You've got a lot of big nerves there. If you think about pulling out a nose hair, it's so sensitive, and that's what your clients can feel as you get towards this Cupid's bow. So I like to get on with it. I like to just get on with it, get it over and done with, because of the difference between the top lip and the bottom lip, particularly in the center of the top, is quite a marked difference. So I just get on with it. As you can see, nice stretch there, stretching the lip between the flats of my fingers, and then just checking and making sure it's there and getting on with it. I find for me that the mapping on the lining is what I spend the most time getting perfect on the lips, because if you do that and you have a wonderful outline, the rest of it is just like filling in, it's colouring in, which if you're good at implanting it is easy. You need to get this shape right, so you're looking for your symmetry and getting a perfect outline, making sure you're not going outside of the shape and making sure it's super crisp. So I'm going down into the middle of the Cupid's bow, and what you'll see I do is just extending that curve slightly down onto the lip tissue. But remember, I'm still only using a pendulum, so I'm not etching into the lip tissue. And then as I start the other side, I cross it over so that where they cross is the middle section of the lips. It just really accentuates to me where that shape is, so I get that perfect curve of the Cupid's bow. So if it looks like I've just extended it, that's why. So I get that cross right in the middle, so I know that I'm right at the bottom of that mapping. And then we just want to check that. My client has sensitive eyes, so she likes to wear sunglasses just to protect her eyes. There we go. See, already I hate that when it smudges. I'll fight to keep it really, really clean. But I can see from the sections that I've removed with the bamboo that it's already in. I can see that the line is there. So I've got no stress about cleaning it off. And if there was any bit that looked pale, then obviously we'd have a line either side of that pale section, so we could just fill in the bit that needed a bit more work like this. And now we can carry on. When I was a beginner at lip blush, I found this side of the top lip the hardest to get right, the hardest to implant into. I don't really struggle with it anymore, but that might be something that you find. So I would find the sides of the top lip much harder than the bottom lip, which just felt generally flatter. And then we'll just move those sections and make sure that it's nice and visible. Wipe again. So after I've done the lining, I'm going to be able to clean my client right up and I have a beautiful clean canvas to work from with a really visible outline. So stretch again, and I turn my client, you watch, I turn up so that my needle is always at 90 degrees. I want to implant at 90, which means guiding and moving my client to make it easier for me. Because rather than having her facing upright and me trying to work on the side, it's just easier to guide her over to facing the opposite way so that I can keep my needle at 90. Let's keep that really soft pendulum going. I don't know why my finger hovers in the air, but it does. I think I do it for balance. I'm not aware of that I'm doing it, but I always have that little that middle finger sticking up. So a quick check. Are we happy? Maybe I have to go over that bit another time. If you're struggling to see your outline, then just adding some secondary anaesthetic will make it more visible. I don't use a lot of secondary anaesthetic on lips. I just don't like it. So, and also it depends whether you can in your country, in your state, in your local council. So I'm not a big fan of secondary anaesthetics. So that's just personal preference. So you can see there that once the outline is done, I can just really nicely move on to actually blushing those lips. I like to start in the centre to get that sensitive bit over and done with. You can see there that I don't run any risk of going outside my lines because it's really visible. So I would say that mapping and outlining are the most important part of your lip blush, because that way you know you're going to get really pretty results. You know that you're not going to get a shape that you don't like, and you know you're going to be able to stay within your framework. And this is what she looked like with the top done, and you can see that really lovely outline on the bottom. And I'm going to include a finished picture. If you need more information on how to do a pendulum, then you're going to need this video here. Enjoy, and I will see you next time.